But outside of that, that's about it on that one. Congratulations on the show. Let me tell you a little bit of a quick story real fast. My family, we're originally from Virginia, the center of Virginia, like right below Charlottesville. So
Mm-hmm.
growing up, my aunts and uncles, when they got older, they went to Prince George County and they moved up around that area. And then they started moving further out. They would go out to like a little place called Laurel,
Mm-hmm.
Maryland. Then
Yeah.
another group of them would move further out to a place called Waldorf. I think that's what it's called. So the Landover Mall, we used to go there. Like I come up in the summertime, stay with mom all through the summer. So we go to Landover Mall here and there. But it was this store called Woolworth. If you was doing right, you got to go get something at Woolworth. And I remember that being up in that area. And then from that time on, I don't remember exactly what happened to the Landover Mall, but something happened, and then we started going to the Iverson Mall south of there. Doing
Yeah.
shopping and stuff. Yeah. Something happened along the way, so we ended up going out that way.
This is a collection of stories.
Landover Legend Studios presents.
I've been through a lot.
The I Can't Make This Up podcast.
Yeah.
By Big C.
But that's about it there. So I do want to tell you thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate that.
Hey man, I appreciate you for taking the time out to join me today.
Oh yeah.
I I I've been seeing what you've been doing. I've been checking out your work. And I think it's commendable. I think that more people need to pay attention to, what I'm saying, everything you got going on, because not everybody actually takes the time to do research and take advantage of the insights when it comes to the business.
Oh yeah, no doubt in that. And that's one thing like that kind of got me by storm. Like just because of the nature of the work that I do, like if you want to be a exceptional podcaster, you do just a little bit of reading, a little bit of research. For instance, if you don't mind, if I just do this real quick, um, sometimes I gotta write out a few things, but like being an exceptional podcast, you got to worry about two things, right? Um, when you got an audience, right? A certain part of your audience is going to think that your podcast is authentic and they're going to get real familiar with it. Then there's going
Hmm.
to be another side that's going to think it's funny and not on point. So like that's the first thing in building your intimacy, with inside your podcast that you have to do. And the thing that I hate about people when they get on and do these videos and say this and that about be authentic, build a podcast. Well, not everybody's going to get what you mean by saying authentic or conveying a message. Like people need a little bit more insight. That's why like I try to say a little bit more, like authenticity in a podcast. And you can agree with me on this probably. The thing is that it's not about um facts or anything like that. It's about the vulnerability of who you are. Like if you somebody from the streets or somebody from the suburbs or wherever you're from, if you're passionate about what you're talking about and you can wrap your audience around your voice and your delivery, that's how you make a bond to keep listeners. And then the next thing that really gets me though is people don't practice this. You got to practice having an active listening part to you. And when I say that, I'm not talking about actively listening to your own podcast. I'm talking about you got to go out here. You got to check out the guys in Landover. I got to check out the dudes in Baltimore. Got to check out the guys out there in Annapolis, what they doing on podcasts.
Hmm.
Even though I live in West Virginia, I still got to see what you guys are doing because what y'all guys are doing, I need to emulate some of that. It ain't Mr. Me Too on these things, but it's like if you got a good podcast vibing, you're doing the videos and you're doing all this other stuff, and I ain't calling it extra, but I'm saying you're doing all this publicity
Different.
with your stuff. Yeah, different stuff. I got to see what you're doing and see how I can bring that into my realm because obviously it's making you popular, and people will not actively listen to other podcasts. And when, like I said, when I'm listening, I ain't talking about actually sitting there listening to the podcast. I'm saying actively watch that podcast. You do those things, you'll have an exceptional podcast.
Hmm.
And then just outside of that, it's just like it's so many ways to fine tune your podcast to make it to where it works out for people because uh everybody always talks about consistency, and I agree you should have a consistent podcast, right?
Hmm.
But you should have a way that you can actually communicate with your listeners because I listen to a lot of podcasts with my consultant business
Mm-hmm.
between me and the rest of my team. So we go out here and we're like, all right, I'm gonna listen to the sound. And even though you don't want to compare another podcast to another podcast, but if
Mm-hmm.
they in the same genre, you can kind of put them both together and be like, what's it different about this one? And why does this one got a certain sound to it and this one don't have that sound? Or why certain things don't match up here or there? Because a good example is the genre of true crime podcast.
Mm-hmm.
When you listen to a true crime podcast, either they're going to be a storyteller or there's somebody that reads facts. If it's a storyteller, it's going to be way better than that person that just reads facts, because anybody can read facts. I mean, you can go watch Unsolved Mysteries and get that scary voice and not even
Mm-hmm.
watch the true crime, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
So, yeah, so definitely on that one, just certain things like that. And then we come to a point with podcasts also. I really try to ask people this. When you're doing your podcast, when you start out your first 10 episodes, I don't care who you are, if you got a business behind you or whatever, the first 10 episodes, it's a hobby. But after that 10th episode, you start seeing who's listening, you see who's watching. So when you get to, even if you have low numbers, if you start your podcast and only have like 5 or 10 listeners, when you get up to 25 and 30 listeners for your podcast, you have a formula for what you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
when you get that formula, 9 times out of 10, you got to decide if you're going to monetize with it or are you going to use podcasting as an advertisement for your side hustle. Because, one of them, or if you're a self-help guru, how you going to make money off of that help that you're giving. And that's when a lot of times people come to me and talk. And some things, and I'm glad you had me on the show, that I'd like to talk about is about the monetization. This is the hardest part of podcasting for people. And people want to charge you $800 for this or that, or some craziness to monetize.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought is, like, you don't even have to do that. Like, I got some real simple advice, because it's one thing that was taught to me by listening to some of these paid people and all that stuff. You can give somebody the formula to monetize, right? But you don't want to sit here and give them the whole boat and the oars to row. Because when you give them the oars to row, if they're not business savvy, they're gonna mess it up for the next man. When it comes to actual business, give them, like I said, put training wheels on it all day long. So the number one thing that I say that you can do to start off to see if you're gonna make money with your podcast is guest monetization. It's real simple. I'm not talking about the portion of charging a guest, because you got to get your show to a certain level before you can start charging guests,
Mm-hmm.
But guest monetization works like this. If you do a podcast with someone, and I'm not talking about podcast collaboration, but I'm talking about you bring on a guest. Let's just use a life coach, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You have that life coach, you set certain guidelines, you stay real strict with this, and you let them know, hey, I'm going to give you these ads. I need you to post them at this time and that time. And you do the research and find out when the best times for you to post ads, because whatever the algorithm is for Instagram, that might not be the same for your area. Have that guest post those ads, and those ads will bring you money because they're going to bring you downloads. They're going to bring you their crop of followers over to your stuff. Even if you got your own fan base, that's the
Yeah.
very first part to start at. Then next, instead of putting ads all into your
Yes.
podcast, because a lot of people want to put ads in. We'll talk about that in a minute. Product placement. A clear example. If you look at most people that's making money in this business, because there's only 1% of podcasts, and this is scary, 1% of podcasts that make actual money. And when I talk about money, I'm talking about if your cost to make your podcast is you use Zoom and your internet bill's $50, if you're making $75 and your mic's already been paid for through your podcast, then you're making money.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not gonna put a cap on if you're making $200-300 off each episode or something like that. That's not that right there will discourage some people, because they're not gonna do that right off bat. And a lot of people are not gonna make money podcasting
Mm-hmm.
because because they're not business savvy in certain areas. But product placement. If I take this watch, for instance, this Apple Watch, I place it in my video or even in a picture. I don't have to say nothing about it or anything. If you can get a pitch together, which is how you sell your show to one of these companies like Apple. Apple's gonna pay you for product placement. Blue Microphone's gonna pay you for product placement. You can do it in small videos, pictures. You can do it without saying a word. And for that, it's just looking around your demographics. Next is like you can get an endorsement, and an endorsement is like And it's real simple. Everybody knows what one is. It's like slapping Hawaiian Punch presents Big T, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you do that type of endorsement, it's a lot of ways to get around to that. And with that, it's kind of crazy because not everybody's gonna get that because not everybody's got that pitch and follow up. And that's where another type of way you have to find somebody that can write that pitch for you and that follow up. But at the end of the day, any of this, you're gonna have to put forth the effort, even if they have the connection to get you there to present it. That's one thing I tell people before you get started on this. Then the next thing you got to think about, and this is the hardest thing, when you start out, we let the world have all kinds of access to us when we're first starting out. You out here, you got the freedom to let people know you on Snapchat or you making videos inside the mall, all this other stuff. Well, when you start monetizing, you got to cut that. Your access has to be paid for. And I'm not saying you got to get on a Patreon or something like that, but if people want exclusive material or some of your personal time, it's got to be at a price. You can't just sit here and be letting everybody get all your time and you not making money off of it because you only got 24 hours in a day, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you allow access to, and there's tiers because there are people that are willing, once they get the intimacy from your episode, like we talked about just a minute ago, once you build up like a rapport with these people, they were willing to spend money with you. And a key thing about any of this is the people that's going to be spending money on you and with you are not going to be your family. They're not going to be your friends. It's going to be a complete stranger. Because family and friends don't, just like I say about followers on Instagram, they don't amount to a hill of beans when it comes to you making money off your podcast. It's going to be that person that lives in Wichita, Kansas, that guy that lives out there in Elkins, Maryland, that you ain't never even been to. Or out there in, what's a good place? Hagerstown. I don't know if I go to Hagerstown no more. Hagerstown, Maryland. He's going to get put on and put money into you because he ain't out there where you are, but he likes to feel. And you're going to make him feel like he can come to Landover to hang out and chill. You're going to give him that kind of vibe. Now, he might not really be able to in real life, but he'll have that feeling from you. And that's where that access comes in. Then the next step, once you've done some of these things to build up some money, you got to start having premium content. And when I tell people premium content, I'm saying like this. And this is just an example of me, right? What happened with me and this podcast in Europe, we had beef. Like we was going back and forth. Like we was putting this thing to wax, like da 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 da. But you know where you didn't hear it? In the free space.
Mm-hmm.
Them 100+ people that's paying that little $2.99 to be part of the Legion, as we call it over on my end.
Uh-huh.
They got all of that wax. And no, it wasn't, we didn't tailor it or doctor it up. We went podcast to podcast, just like you would be like a rap disc.
Mm-hmm.
I said this, they said that, and then the beef died, and now we don't talk. But the thing is that I offered a platform for that to take place, and it didn't mess up my brand or nothing, but people got to see the true politics inside podcasting, but they paid for it. So there's so much you can do with premium stuff after you go through one of those other levels to get there. And I tell everybody, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. It doesn't matter who gets there fast because whoever gets there first usually fizzles. It's these podcasts that spend $300 an episode or in these professional places that just break even. It's the cast that's out there that's doing these podcasts and figured a way to get it to a minimum cost that make money. And another thing is SEO, search engine optimization. When you are doing a podcast, right? Your podcast is on Google Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
If your show notes are not on point, like if you don't actually do real show notes, you're taking that much money out of your pocket because the goal in podcasting to get people to listen is how many different people are going to listen from different arenas. You got Facebook people, you got Twitter, you got Tumblr, you got Pinterest, you got Reddit, you got LinkedIn. You got so many places that people are going to come from because that's where they look at their news. You know, me and you might just jump on Instagram. That's where we get our news. Or a business dude might just go to LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Well, I got to tailor to all these people so they can see my podcast. I can't just sit on Instagram all day and do lives and do this and that and hope to generate audience and make some money. Because the truth be told, I didn't mean behold, be told, inside of Instagram live stuff, I don't see how they monetize off of it. I know that Instagram will let you make a little money off of it, but Not everybody's gonna get to 10,000 listener. I mean,
Followers.
10,000 followers to do all the extra stuff that you're able to do, because Instagram kind of puts you in a little cage, just like an institution, not like a little prison to a degree. If you make it out, that's all right, and if you don't make it out, we're gonna keep you here. And I say, think about this too. Instagram doesn't let you put links in your post.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you doing selling merchandise or anything like that, it all gets lost. All you can do is put a link tree there, and half the people, I'm gonna say 70% of the people out here, I can go to their website, go to a link tree, and something don't work, and nobody tells them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I always tell everybody, do a double check on that. And then the next thing, YouTube is a place that has a different SEO and a different way of monetizing. I tell people, after you're done with your episodes, if you haven't put them out on on YouTube, put them out over there later. You do a full season, put the whole season out on YouTube and see what happens with it. It's a hard place to advertise. It's a place that if you go over there and you do something like that, you gotta mess with somebody that's savvy with that. You can't just get one of these cats that's running around on Instagram doing stuff, because that is not the same ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I'll say there. You cannot trust nobody who does YouTube and Instagram and Facebook with the videos to be making money across the board. You only gonna make money on one of them platforms. Because if you're making it on YouTube, you don't need Instagram. Just logic there. Now over to the merchandise. Any and everybody is gonna give you their whole take on merchandise. Some people can get in with good people that will produce their product for a little bit of nothing so they can make money. Me personally, me and the old lady Stacy and my co-host, we went out and bought that Cricut machine. I bought that Cricut machine. It cuts that vinyl. She got that press. It makes them t-shirts. It makes them cups. It makes the keychains. I had to keep everything in-house because I knew that at some point you're going to have to give away some merchandise as promotional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hate to have to come pay you $200 to make my merchandise, then pay you another $200 to make some more. And some of it you're gonna have to give away. Some of your promotional stuff you will have to give to people to get them involved if you want more listeners and different things like keychains. So I'd rather keep it in-house and try to make that cost up somewhere else, So merchandising, I always say, like, when you get merchandise up there, pay attention to how your money's being spent and how you're doing it. And if you do that, you'll be successful with that. Me personally, I try to keep everything in-house. I don't want to try to give out too much money to people. If it's something like graphic design or something like that, that's different, because that's not my speed. Certain things I'm not going to have that speed for. So merchandise, that's all up to you. Now, here goes the next thing, and this is like a little superlative thing. I always talk about Bluetooth speakers. That's the party. That's where you get your podcasts out there in parks and different places. Now, I know in certain cities and certain areas, you ain't going to be able to do that. I get that. But in restaurants, and I ain't talking about like fine dining, I'm talking about like these little spots where people go, like the cafes, like on Friends and shit like that.
Okay.
You can talk to owners and you can host a podcast party, because people will listen to your podcast and they will be willing to discuss it. You can go, and I ain't saying you got to do like me, had a little projector to throw it up on Google Podcast or whatever I use to play it so people can see it, because all they're seeing is your logo and then listening to it. But you could throw a podcast party somewhere, and I know it doesn't sound very it sounds very elementary, but if you really think about it, you throw it and people hear it and you leave a forum open to discuss it. Even if you do it online, if you do it right from where you are right now and you live stream it, the thing is, you're giving people an opportunity to see you and to draw up that reality intimacy. Intimacy is the highest selling point in this thing. You've got to build it to where people feel like they can sit on the couch in your house and chop it up with you. If you can't do that, you're not going to do anything. And then the last thing, which is the greatest thing inside of monetization, is local business. Restaurants have radio airtime that they can give to you instead of giving to a freaking radio station. You can undercut their costs and make it a little cheaper. You can actually go out and find out what radio stations are charging to do this. Undercut that middleman out, because we are the new radio. When's the last time you turned on the radio?
Not often.
Right. But you are the new radio. People listening to your podcast, people take time to put that over their ears in the shower, in the car, wherever. They're gonna listen to you over what's on the radio. If they want to hear music, they got Spotify and Apple Music to find exactly what they want. So why let that advertisement go into dead space? But that right there, that's pretty much like the not the bulk, but that's like the generalization of how to monetize, different ways to do it, and it's in other ways outside the box. Like spilling over to the one thing that nobody talks about, real quick, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
is the actual is actually the advertising portion of podcasting. We don't talk about that because you're on these host sites, and these host sites don't promote your podcast. I don't care if you with Buzzsprout, uh, Podbean, whoever, you still got to get out there and promote it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I say, and this is the one tip I will give away for free, is this one thing: take your podcast from Spotify or somewhere that will let you share it to Snapchat. You live in Landover, Maryland. You can get to DC in what, 45 minutes?
No, I'm 10 minutes outside of DC.
Or say 10 minutes, well, my bad, 10 minutes outside of DC. You what, an hour from Baltimore?
But yeah, about that.
So if you travel to any of the monuments in Washington, D.C., you can get on a Snap Map. You can use Spotify. Share your podcast right there to Washington, D.C. A bunch of kids will see your logo because they looking on the Snap Map because everybody, all the young kids and stuff look on there and see this podcast. They listen to it. They might like it. If they don't like it, they pass it along to their parents. I guarantee you. Parents don't want to have to click through 40 million different things to get to a podcast. If a kid puts it right there on that phone through Spotify or Apple or whoever, you just got a listener. Then you didn't have to go out here and advertise on Instagram or take time away from your normal life to get listeners. So any area, like when I travel, I go to rest areas. Don't you know the episode we do or something? It's gonna pop up right there. Kid is gonna get it. He's gonna be like, man, West Virginia Uncommon Place is whack. But my grandma listened to it though. Bam. And that's the key to advertising. You got to think outside the box. You can't just do this. I call it the brick and mortar. You can't just be, I'm going to post a meme, I'm going to post this or that, and think that you're going to get listeners, because our followers are podcasters listening to podcasters. You may have some fans on there, but at least, let me see, hold on, let me look at the paper. 76% of my listeners do not follow don't follow me on Instagram. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Yeah.
So
But I mean, that's what they're I mean, they're not there to follow your social media. They're there to listen to your show and enjoy your content.
Right. So I'm sorry that I took over that real quick with all that extraness. But go ahead. What else you got for me?
I was going to say, I appreciate all that information. A lot of things I took note of that I'm gonna take advantage of myself. On top of that, I know that you had mentioned earlier that you ended up getting into beef with international beef with another set of podcasters. How did that come about?
Basically, this is what happened, and this is where I go in about guests. They weren't even a podcast then. They was just a normal group. I ain't gonna state their name because people know who they are, because we don't gossip. Basically, they did 2 shows with me, and they tried to say that I was trying to capitalize off them. They said that I asked them the same questions a second time over, which I didn't. They had the same content, but they were actually releasing a book. So I brought them back on to give them a refresher, because I was like, man, you did numbers for me then. Let me do you another favor because it's closer to your release date.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a very invasive person. When you come to me to do podcasting business, like real business, I'm going to ask you some real personal questions. I need to know your numbers. I'm not going to go on Chartable or use a paid service to go find out your information. I want you to just be 100% honest with me. And if you're not honest with me and you lie about it, and I go to Chartable or somewhere else where I can pull up your real numbers,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get mad. So when it was time to do everything, they had launched their podcast. They did 2 shows, and they really lied to me about their numbers. They really exaggerated them. Like, I'm talking about ridiculous. Well, if I'm a consultant and I do this as my second job, I'm going to know your numbers. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to know what you're doing exactly, because your numbers are public numbers. And I always tell people, don't think just because you have it locked down on Anchor that somebody cannot see your numbers, because they can. Mm-hmm. They can pay to go see your numbers. So I looked at their numbers, and I came back, and I'm real concise. I don't beat around the bush. I don't have time for that because I'm here to help you. I want someone to grow if you're doing business with me. Now, if we're just friends and we're talking to stuff over, I'm not going to be invasive. You tell me what you want me to know, and I'm just going to act like that's what's going on, you know. But they came to me for business. Like, how can I make more money? And I told him, I was like, you can do this, and that. But I asked him a question that I went back on later, and I shouldn't have asked it. I asked him, what was your next plan? What were you planning to do in the third episode? And they felt like that was too invasive. Like they thought I was trying to steal their idea. And I told them, you're an international podcast. You're over there in England. I could give two rats. We can cuss on here, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I could give two rats ass what you're doing over there. I got my own platform. I'm just trying to help you out. If you want business, I'm going to give you business. We're not going to sit here and act like we're going to hold hands inside the church and be all cool about things. We're going to be outside. It's going to be sweaty. You're going to be at the lemonade stand. You're going to be selling the lemonade, but I'm going to tell you what flavors to put in because that's what I do because I can find out the flavors you need. My team can find that out, and we can do those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So strawberry lemonade sells on Sundays. What we going to have out there? Strawberry lemonade. But on the other corner with the next podcast, I'm going to tell them put out peach so that the peach and the strawberry is not full competition, but they real competition because they're two different things going into each other instead of both of them doing strawberry lemonade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that ended. It was just I was too tough or I asked the wrong question.
Well, I don't think that you was too tough. I think that, ego and a little ignorance played a part in, stirring up the tension. So with people like that, I mean, you take it for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, I'm not gonna go back and forth with you, especially when it comes to business. But I'm gonna feed you with a long handle spoon. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could
I
be
definitely feel
cordial.
you on that.
Yeah, we could be cordial, but other than that, I'm gonna chuck the deuce at you.
But let me add this in though, and this is where you can see where the business comes in. I like professional wrestling, so I seen this as like a little feud, like a little um Brock Lesnar versus whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna say who was Brock Lesnar in this situation, but I seen it like Brock Lesnar versus whoever he's gonna beat up in the pay per view. So why not put this in a? Because you got to be careful about what you do on the outside of your podcast, but in that premium arena, I can put that out, and people want to hear that. That's juicy. Even I want to go back and hear it, but I ain't paying to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's where the business came in. I was like, man, we can market this, even though we was out here at odds. I was like, let's throw it over here. Let's not put it out in the public. Because at first I just wanted to put that shit out to wax, just like some Jay-Z, Nas, Ether type beef.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that if I had done that, I'm going to lose some of them British listeners and
Yeah.
this and that. But people paying for it heard it, respected it, gave me their critique. We went on with life.
Yeah. And then you played it right also on, capitalize on the situation and not trying to, real push an image to like, oh, this is who I am if someone tries me. You know what I'm saying? No,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna let your attitude or your words or your methods change who I am. What I am going to do is I'm going to think about my business before I let you change, what I'm saying, what I got going on or have that dictate my next move. So if you want to do it, let's carry it this way and make some money from it at the same time.
Right. And
Most
that's how that
definitely.
one played out. And other than that, I'll tell you one thing I did learn is I learned never have beef in this business. If you come to me for business, like if that's the very first thing you do with me, then
Hmm.
that's our relationship. But if you come to me on some humble stuff, like not humble, but you come to me like, yo, I'm digging your podcast. I don't really like this about your podcast. I'm gonna take that grain of salt and be like, yeah, that's right. Something ain't right about that. I shouldn't have did a podcast about the Seven Dwarfs without Snow White or something like that. I should have
Mm.
had Snow White in there too. I'm good. That's good criticism. I need to hear that. But if you
Yeah.
come to me straight for business and then I give you them answers or ask you them questions you don't like, because I've had quite a few podcasts do that. I will answer any question for free. And I'm saying it just like this because I need this to be out there on wax. I will answer any question that I can help you with your podcast if it's something engaging. But if I have to do analytical work to your podcast, you got to pay me for my time. And that's the only thing that gets twisted because I got people that listens that will actually listen to your podcast. I got an ensemble of 14 people that will listen in different demographics across the US to let you know how they feel about your podcast, what they think. You only need 14 opinions. If you need more than that, then I don't know, But that's that on that one.
So it seems like you structure your podcast around your consulting experience, and along with that, you kind of figured out a game plan to not only, advertise yourself, but help others along the way. And while doing that, you actually gained a bigger or a better perspective when it comes to the podcasting side of the business. And not just that, but tricks and the trades that that's going to help others instead of just trying to benefit from other people's show or platform or whatever it might is.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's why like I do that. Like you said, the podcast collide, because this is what happened to me, and I don't tell this story enough. And this is just real fast. I
Mm-hmm.
started. I got back into podcast in August of last year. Right, I
Mm-hmm.
took 2 years off. These two 18-year-old girls, right? They had this show called The Late Late Interview. They show was fire, and I just felt in my heart that I knew it wasn't gonna last, and I don't think they knew it. But these girls took 2 hours, right, and they gave me the whole podcast game. Most of the stuff I told you, they taught me how to do Canva because I'm old school. I'll get on Microsoft Paint and make my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They taught me Canva. They taught me the business. And after that, they did like 3 more shows, and then they never came back. And I was like, somebody actually took the time that didn't know me from a can of paint. They was from somewhere I don't even know where they was from. It was like the Midwest, somewhere I don't even travel to.
Okay.
But but they took that time to just show me that little bit, all because I liked their podcast, followed it, and listened to 4 episodes, and told them that the third one was garbage. Like I said, you had consistent work in 1, 2, and 4, but 3, you should have put that one back in the archives. Bring it, repurpose it, and bring it out as like a blooper episode.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens. Like I got some trash sometimes, and I don't want to put it out, but the way my numbers is looking, I gotta roll with that momentum, and then I go back later and be like, man, if I ain't wish I didn't do that, but it's numbers. After a while, still keep good quality content, but like with the podcast collide, I did it because it got to a point where I was like, everybody was liking each other's podcasts. You were learning about this, and that, and there was a divide in podcasting. Like it was certain episodes could get certain traction because of the people that they followed in the independent realm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then came along Pat from Podcastagram, if you're familiar with him, which he's a great guy. He did that little tournament, and he took the suburban podcast and the urban podcast, which is not, I've explained on other episodes, I'm not talking black or white. I'm just talking about the different demographics because I live in
Yeah.
West Virginia. It ain't nothing but mountains. You either live in a trailer, live in an apartment, or live in a house. It ain't no in between. And then
Yeah.
you got some podcasts that's just middle class, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then you got urban podcasts, which just could be where you're in the city. If you live in the metropolitan area of DC, you go down to the southern part, like that's going touching back to Virginia. That's more of your, it's scattered all over.
Yeah.
So you get what I'm saying. So Pat put together these different podcasts in this tournament. And beforehand, I started reaching out to podcasts that I didn't listen to at all. And where I travel, I do like from West Virginia to here. I actually cut around your area. I'm up in New Jersey right now. In that little 6-hour trip, I'll listen to different podcasts that I don't listen to. They gotta fit a certain criteria. Like I like a show that's like an hour long. Anything more than an hour, I can't listen to it because you can make that 2 episodes and make money off that. But 45 minutes is like a good stopping point on a show for real. If you're going to try to do more with it, if you're going to rant and stuff like that, that's different. But anyway, so these podcast collide episodes, I found podcasts that was doing something, but they just didn't have that traction. And I'm not a podcaster. I'm a talk show host. I'm going to ask you questions that's gripping. I watched 2020 growing up in life. So I got them Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, John Stossel, whoever the interviewer is, questions. So I'm going to get what I need out of you and put you in a certain light that gets you a little rocky on the edge, but it shows that vulnerability so that somebody can be like, man, it's more to this person than just what's perceived on a podcast. And that's all I ever strive to do. I ain't really even ever worried about the listeners. I just want to break that mold that this certain podcaster is this when this podcaster is versatile,
Yeah, most definitely. I think that other podcasters don't listen to other podcasts um because they feel as though they always stuck in that space. Like, I listen to myself talk, or I listen to somebody else talk on my show, and I don't want to hear somebody else do the same. When you know I can say no to podcasts are alike. That's the first thing. Another thing is, um unless you know that you are doing something totally different. A lot of people don't want to subconsciously like pick up on something, and what I'm saying, end up adapting that to what they're doing, because then it becomes like, okay, they jocking my style or whatever, or riding my coattail, or trying to, what I'm saying, claiming ideas as they own. And when it comes to ego, that's when you get those little beefs or subliminal shots shot at you or whatever. Or, what I'm saying, somebody might mention you on the live, and as an adults, because that's mainly who you see doing podcasts, you would expect people could rise above that, but that's not the case. This is 2021. We see all types of shit going on that doesn't need to happen, but it happens anyway. So
Right.
I think once people get out of their own way and just realize that, I think a lot of problems when it comes to community can stop. And just, have an actual conversation, and some comprehension behind it, not just like, okay, we talked about it, we can dead it and move on. Like, do we actually have the understanding, or we just wanted to get this conversation out the way? Because that's the difference between, what I'm saying, two adults talking and two people talking at each other. You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you on that. And to touch on that a little bit, I definitely wholeheartedly agree with that. Like the one thing that I say, because I got an episode I'll be doing at some point called Mr. Me Too. You remember Mr. Me Too, the song?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you do see that sometimes. And like I say, if you emulate, like if you take a little bit from someone else, that's cool. Um, show a little respect on it, just like you would if you was taking somebody's flow for rapping. Just like I'll tell you one thing that I always use as an example and tell people that you Mr. Me Too. Look at how Ludacris used to rap to the way that Big Sean raps with that super flow.
Mm-hmm.
There won't no credit given on that. He had a different twang to it, but it was the same. It's the same flow, that super flow.
Yeah.
A collabo could have been done and made that right, but today they'll always be at odds because Big Sean took that super flow to another level, and Ludacris got mad. Ludacris has hits and everything, and I ain't gonna disrespect either one of them. I'm just saying that that super flow belongs to Big Sean in this generation now, when Ludacris was the father of that thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, but like you're saying, yeah, people should own up a little bit and have a little bit of accountability to you in doing that. Like in the way that I avoid stuff like that is this. When it actually comes to listening to podcasts, I'm not gonna say I sit there and listen to every single podcast every week.
Mm-hmm.
You got 7 days in a week, and one of them days you're not busy. Because if you work 7 days a week, you're working way too hard, you're putting yourself in the grave early. Everybody has 15 minutes free every day, right? And I'm talking about really, we're going to talk about a person that works a 12-hour day, right? You get two 15-minute breaks. One of them breaks you either on TikTok, Facebook, or you calling your boo. The other one, you staring at the wall, or you doing just something that, whatever. All you got to do is listen to 5 minutes of somebody's podcast. Or you can either interject, and I'll do this just because sometimes I don't have the time to listen, and people don't have the time to listen to all mine. Tell me where I can find the finer points in your podcast so that's gonna make me listen to the whole thing. If you're that blunt, that honest with people, people will understand. And I'm saying that on wax right now because I will tell a guy, you got a podcast, it's 45 minutes long. I can give you that. I can do that. You got a podcast, it's an hour and 30 minutes. Where does the show start? Does it start at minute 15:32? Does it start at 45:18? Or does it start at 60:32? Or at an hour and 10 minutes? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and on that, like, yeah, you can kind of do that and everything work out. And then some people, you have to be, the one thing in the business, you got to be real careful how you talk to some people because some people come from a different respect, you know what I'm saying? And they're
Yeah.
not used to having people being so forward and so blunt and honest. And usually the catch wave on that, I hate to say this, but in this business, it's a lot of gossip you hear. Well, I'm gonna be 100% because a lot of people say that I am not approachable. Like if you're not talking to me about business, I will not even listen to you, and that's not even the case. I hold friendly conversation with everybody. I try to big up all kinds of podcasts. If I can get a listen, or one of my people that's out there that listening to your podcast throws your podcast at me, and I ask them, I don't ask you. I'll be like, yo, what's the fire in this? This cat's over in Landover. What's he doing in Landover that they not doing out there in Suitland? Why is it? Why should I listen to him over the cat in Suitland
Hmm.
or the guy in Marlow Heights? And they'll explain like, man, he just got this going right here and there. Listen to how he talks to the guests, how he pull the questions out, blah 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 blah. Somebody do that for me, I'm definitely listening. Which is case.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to, I can't really say this generation. Um, the people living in these day and age, 56% of them are like mostly sensitive. You know what I'm saying? So you
Yeah,
got to
Terry
treat them.
Cloth.
Yeah, you got to treat them with kid gloves. And I'm just like, when when you can't. So people of our generation, right? How old are you, Jr.?
36.
Okay, so same age, right?
Yeah.
So we came up in a different
85.
area. You know what I'm saying? We came up in a different era, and we kind of traditionalized the way we came up and the way we grew up and the people that came around us or the people that showed us the way, and we kept that going. And we noticed the change and we adhered to it, but we kept those same principles. So when you got people coming up in say, let's say the last 20 years, they grew up under totally different principles. So my biggest issue is the disconnect between our generation and this new generation. I think without that, or because of that, I think that's where we get a lot of people butting heads, or we get a lot of people, going back and forth and just misunderstanding people. You know what I'm saying? That's like if I come from an Asian background, I only spoke, like Mandarin or something like that, and I moved to Calcutta, I'm going to have a difficult time.
Right.
You feel me? So it's kind of like that when it comes to connecting to somebody that you're not familiar with their background. It's going to be an instant disconnect, and that's what you see every day. And now with the help of social media, there's more direct access than ever. So when it comes to us trying to like, we can be talking the same language, but our brains are working totally different.
Right, right.
So
And how you see them phrases too, how somebody writes them is gonna look different to me than it looks to you. So like when someone says something sarcastic, I'm really like I'm really technical, so I can see the sarcasm, so I'll roll with it. But there's
mhm.
some people that use Android phones, and I did say Android phones, that they rule Androids. So them Androids ain't gonna see that. They're gonna just see that as a pure diss and come hard, like you said. The other thing, like you said, and you touched on it, um, I think what messed up this whole 20-year gap is that we were in the infancy of MySpace and all that other stuff when we were coming up. I remember AOL on the little disc we had to pop it in, and then in the dial up. All we were worried about was instant messaging, whoever or whatever. We had pagers and the SkyTels and all that stuff. We didn't jump on social media to air somebody out. We didn't jump on social media for emotion. We jumped on it for just pure communication because it was faster than calling you on a telephone
Yeah.
as we were coming up. And then when it got to a point where cell phones became too big and it got color screens, that's when the world changed. Basically, it was like after the death of MySpace, the world really changed. Because even when we were doing MySpace, everybody was just worried about putting their favorite music on there and doing whatever, having the hottest page with the letters raining down. I was just making sure I had a hot page. I was just fresh out of high school, probably.
Mm.
And Facebook was something in college. It was something we just used to communicate. I was just letting people know that I got them bootleg CDs and the bootleg DVDs on deck so they could come see me before I left for the weekend going back home, you know? And now it's like people use it as a black and white journal that they used to write in, because cats that used to write in a journal and shit, but they do it out loud.
Yeah,
And one thing I learned, and even with that beef I had, not everything should be brought to the light.
for sure.
Yeah, some stuff just got to sit down.
Man,
But
I don't think that I don't think people can really get out their way sometimes, especially if that's all they know. You know what I'm saying? Like, if
True.
all they know is bitterness or to treat situations like this, then they'll never learn. And we're coming up in a generation, and we're seeing them, all learning life the hard way instead of, what I'm saying, throwing, all that extra stuff to the side and just be like, look, let me slow down and let me take, take my time instead of trying to rush to the end goal. Because, like you said earlier, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and that's what life
Right.
is. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'll tell you the other thing that gets me though is like people thinking so much stuff is subliminal. Like that's one thing in this whole podcasting that I had to learn to be very careful about because somebody thought I did a sneak diss because I was in a certain area because everybody knows that my area. I live in West Virginia, but I'm in Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, and Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I go out to these places, right? And this is some off the record, but on the record stuff now. I go to these areas, and there's podcasters that I deal with that live in these areas, but they don't want to come outside, because of pandemic. But the pandemic's over. But I'll be in these areas, and I'm promoting my other little venture called Sometime Cinema. We take the little projector, pop it up, do a cult movie. We don't charge nothing. We just do it on the side. That was just my shameless plug right there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, um, I'll be in some of these areas, and these people get quiet. Like, and I ain't no thug. I'm from the suburbs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not from nowhere bad. I'm from like where the cows, just chill. But
Yeah.
anyway, we come to these areas, and then they be like, "Oh man, you came through this area. You ain't come see me, blah blah blah." Man, I hit you up on this and that, and I'm like, "Yo, let's go to the arcade bar or something, or Dave and Buster's or something. Show people that we all realistic and actually people." That's my only pet peeve in this thing is that people be like, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that," but when you're in a city, like I got the equipment, I got carry one mic, I carry three other mics and hook it into a dongle. That's right, a dongle.
Yeah.
I can do four microphones from my computer, and I can make a live show just like anybody else with the headphones and everything without audio input or the little input thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people get real quiet when I come to their city. So that's the only thing that gets me though. In this whole thing, it's like people will here. Yeah, this is the point I was getting to. I'm sorry, because sometimes I blab. People will celebrate some of your triumphs, but they truly don't support you in this thing. I'll give you an example. Like what I do when I listen to your show, right? I catch your show on Spotify, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna listen to it there. Everybody knows I'm an Apple guy. Each Apple device, you have to download the different episodes onto those devices. So if I'm on a computer and I see remember your icon or something, I didn't throw it on the computer, so I'll definitely listen on the computer. The iPad, I take pictures and shit with that, so I ain't really gonna do too much listening on that. On the
Yeah.
iPhone, I'm not gonna store nothing on my iPhone because that's my work phone.
Yeah.
So I'll take time to listen, and I will definitely take 2 minutes out my time to give you some realistic feedback, like a review on your thing. So many people will listen to your podcast, listen for a listen. No, I don't do that. Just give me your review. Check them stars. If it's 3 stars, let me know why. And I'll see if it fits into my mode. If it don't fit into my mode, it won't be a meme. You know?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean that's true though. I don't think people ever actually consider that when it comes to, or they take it too personal when it comes to like uh people celebrating you versus people supporting you. For me, uh support doesn't have to be you sharing my page or telling all your friends about me. Support for me is sharing my videos or listening to my shows or hitting that like button or leaving a comment. You know what I'm saying? Like, or even buying some merch. That's support for me. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't gotta do it to show me that you're doing it. You can do it quietly. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
You know what I'm saying? It's not like on every platform you can see who's doing what, but you can tell when someone isn't. You know what I'm saying? So for me,
right,
I always, I had this discussion with somebody not too long ago, and I said that you shouldn't have to ask your friends or family to support you on anything. That's something that should come, unless it's something negatively infecting you. But if it's something positive that you're doing, or something that you just starting out, like a podcast or whatever, support should come automatically. And what you find when it comes to certain ventures is that your biggest supporters, like you said earlier, is somebody you don't know, is a total stranger. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
focus
and
on
that's
them.
and that's the major thing. So like I'll tell people, even if you don't share no love, I'll tell you this is my favorite thing. And this sounds so wrong, but it's right to me. This one dude, we was going back and forth. I was like, man, I like your podcast, right?
Hmm.
I said you do two of them. Well, the podcast you do with your group, I don't like. I don't like them. Me and y'all really got beef on here, and y'all know why we got beef. But you got this new show out, right? And it's like a different side of y'all. You and the other dude just stepped away from the rest of them, and that gave away who it was. But anyway, you stepped away from them. Y'all did another show, and this show is your Mona Lisa that smiles. I'm not gonna follow you on Instagram, but I'm gonna definitely show you the love on the podcast, and then I will shout you out in my weekend shout outs. I will listen to your episode, but coming with the truth, I'm a Cancer. I'm born in July, so I'm Petty Murphy, Richard Petty, Betty Petty, whatever. But I still have enough respect for these people as a whole because it's like I listened to it and I was like, wow. And what it took was another group of podcasters that takes podcasts and reviews them, which is crazy, doing this. And I heard this on the road, and I'm like, these dudes, I really don't like these dudes in real life, but they podcast, no faking it or nothing. Is man, it's really good. I'm gonna put this on my subscribe list. Then we had a conversation later through DM, and I was like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. We don't get down, but I can't lie, your podcast good.
Yeah.
So that's how I treat situations, even if I like don't really care that much for somebody. Um, I'm gonna give you the extent to listen to it, and then some people. I got one dude that deals with me, and he said, "Yo, I don't care what nobody does." He's like, "Turn your iPad off and play my podcast while asleep. Turn the volume down." He's like, "I just want the numbers." He told me he wanted the numbers. I was like, "Yo, that shit can happen any night. I got electricity in these hotels that I'm in, or when I'm at home. Most
Yeah.
definitely." I can respect that. Your whole catalog will get listened to in one night because it'll just roll.
Yeah.
And even in doing that, it's still supporting them because he told me exactly what he wanted. Because I really wanted to listen to the podcast. He's like, nah, you don't want to do that. And I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head, why are you supporting? Why are you doing a podcast? He's like, nah, I just need them downloads or the plays or impressions.
Yeah.
So somebody got their whole little 42 catalog done in 2 days, in my
Yeah.
sleep. But it's a support. If that's what they want, I'm gonna support you however I can. Because I know when I started out, it was that one set of them two girls that gave me the business and supported me. It was like, we'll do your ad, then you put it out. We'll do all your little graphics. This is what we need you to do for us. Teach us how to get the hypeness in our podcast. Teach us how to about like if you watch wrestling, Brock Lesnar has a guy named Paul Heyman that does the talking because Brock Lesnar can't sell a promo.
Uh huh.
I'm kind of like Paul Heyman. I can do that promo. Water to a well, sand in the desert to a camel. So that's how that rolls.
Hey, I mean, you got to respect someone's honesty when it comes to them keeping it 100 about what they want from their show, and that's fine. For me, um, whether someone likes my show or not, I'd rather for them to take the information that was talked about on it and put it to good use, or at the least support my guests, because I'm not bringing them on there for no reason. I'm not trying to get a bunch of views and go viral, nothing like that. My show is about my guests, and it's not about me. It's about what they got going on and the information they got. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm looking for, and at the same time, have a dope conversation. You know what I'm saying? I could talk all day, but I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm pretty sure people's not gonna sit there and listen to me talk for 2.5 to 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Even though I can do that with his show, depending on who's on the show, because I'm a fan of both of them at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
True,
If he's
true,
sitting
true.
across from Dave Chappelle or Dan Aykroyd, or what's my man name? Um uh Alex something. I can't think of his name, but those are conversations I can listen to for 3 hours straight because I'm actually into the conversations that they have. You know, but not everybody does that. A lot of people go for stories. A lot of people go for sex talk. A lot of people go for drama, and then the rest is just you know murder, mystery, and true crimes or autopsy or strictly business. You know.
Now, real quick, I turn the tables in everybody's podcast because, like I said, I'm a talk show host. So let's talk about something that you bring to podcasting that I love, right?
Okay.
So you can be chilling somewhere and, really not paying attention to the world. But before I listen to one of your episodes, man, you got trailers.
Okay.
You put a little preview out there to entice people. Not a lot of people do that anymore because that's podcasting 101. That's how you build that intimacy. Like, you let me know if I need to listen this week or if I need to wait till Sunday and get you a listen, but not that quality one. And I'm not saying that in a rude way because we all have fire in our episodes, but sometimes that preview is the difference in me listening to something else. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm giving you to you as a fan when I say this. So, what made you start doing trailers?
Me personally, I didn't want to just put anything out because when I first started, I was just like, I want to do this, but I gotta make sure that I'm not just throwing something out there and expecting people to click on it. So in order for you to do that, you gotta give them a tease, or you gotta give them something that's gonna catch their ear. Like, what did he just say? Kicking a rabbit in the face? That's different. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I'm always looking at for marketing skills in order to better anything that I do. So I just was like, all right, I got to do it like TV shows used to do it back in the day. Back when like TGIF back in the day, they show you a
Oh,
little clip of what's
yeah.
coming on for Friday on like Monday, like after Jeopardy or whatever. Bow. That's what I'm gonna do for my show.
And that's how they knew I was going to stay home and not go to the skating ring.
Yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
If I was going to watch Family Matters or if I was just going to skip it because that's all I cared about. That and Meets World. Forget Step by Step. Now,
Not everybody
here's the
remembers
next thing
that.
that oh yeah, it comes with the age. Now, another thing that you do in podcasting that is amazing, and I give everybody their merits, and I give them testimonies. And I hate that I take over people's shows sometimes, but I'm just doing this real quick. We got a podcast collide inside the show.
Nah, you good.
You break up episodes.
Hmm.
You are not that guy that's gonna sit there and have a 4 hour show. We might record this for an hour and 30 minutes, but you're gonna break that joint up and have 2 episodes out of it. Who gave you that idea and who made that stick with you? Because I see some people, and I'm talking, we're gonna go in the 40 percentile that will put a 3 hour episode out.
Yeah. For me, after I put out my first initial episode, which ran for 2.5 hours, I realized that the longest playtime on that was, initially like 23 minutes. Outside of people I know that wanted to hear that conversation. So when it comes to getting feedback, that was one of the first things I was getting in the comments. Too long, too long, too long. Or you could have next time, put timestamps. You know what I'm saying? So I took that as okay, I could listen if I was somebody that knew me, I could sit there and listen to these two go back and forth because I know these people. But since I was just starting out, I had to realize that I gotta find a way to make that happen without overdoing it. So I broke it down. I said, okay, this will give people the option, because some people they'll skip through your show, wait till you talk about a certain subject, and be like, okay, cool. Maybe I do want to listen to the rest of this because depending on the guest or depending on the topic, people gonna be like, maybe I don't want to hear them talk about politics, but I do want to hear them talk about prostitutes. You know what I'm saying? Not that I'm saying that's what we
Right,
talk about,
right.
but
They want that grit.
yeah. So that's what you can find that out by actually listening to the show. So dialing it back sometimes it saves you from hitting a low or possibly I don't want to say bore your guests, but they feel like you just talking just to be talking. You know what I'm saying? And I never
Right,
talk
fill
just
it
to
for the
talk.
pie.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to cover a bunch of airtime or nothing like that. Like the purpose of my show is to have a conversation that people can adhere to. So if that conversation lasts an hour, that's great. If it's more than an hour, then it's best to break that up. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right, and I definitely agree with that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say